I think living in a spacious place, lots of cows, not a lot of people around me. I had few friends, a very small school. That shaped who I am as a person, and I think shaped how I navigate the world. That's the lens through which I see the world. 100%. Yeah. Mark Twain said the antidote to prejudice is travel. And I felt very welcomed by that community. I felt like I fit in there. And I think all of those little steps of validation pushed me toward where I am today. What I realized that was, none of these stories were extravagant. Nobody said, oh, when I got this big raise at my job, or when I bought this really fancy car, I was so happy. None of the stories were like that. They were simple. They were simple moments of joy.
Welcome to today's Whereabouts Tales episode with Anne-Marie Wells. Before I let you dig in the episode, I'm excited to let you know that we are giving away one of her books. Stay tuned until the end of the episode to find out how you can get it. Hello and welcome to today's episode. Today we have Anne-Marie Wells invited in the show. She's an incredible storyteller. She's an award-winning writer and an adventurer. Anne-Marie, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you, Paul. Thank you for having me.
I will start with the things that I always start. Ask ChatGPT, what does it know about you? And
oh gosh, what did it know?
So I will read it out loud.
Okay.
Anne-Marie Wells is a contemporary poet, author, and storyteller, and playwright. Her works often delve into personal experiences, exploring themes such as grief, motherhood, and identity. Notable publication includes Survived by, a memoir in verse, plus other poems, and Mother from 2024. Beyond her writing, Wells offers services as a freelance copy editor, proofreader, poetry coach, and non-profit consultant. She maintains an active presence on social media, sharing insights into her work and creative process.
Wow, that's good. Good job, ChatGPT.
That's good. It's always a nice experience that I did with all my guests who are famous, and it's kind of interesting to see the reaction of everyone when they see it, because I think nobody has had the curiosity to do it.
No, so that's interesting.
Anne-Marie, originally coming from Attica, New York. Did I get that right?
Utica. Yeah, Utica.
Utica.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry,
Mm-hmm.
not an English mother speaker. That's why some
That's
of
okay.
the words were not...
It has a different pronunciation than how it looks. Yeah.
Attica. Okay. Anne-Marie, you lived in multiple places across the country, and I would dare to say around the globe. As I've seen that,
Correct.
2013 you managed to absorb a master's degree in Portugal.
Correct.
How
yeah.
has each place shaped your writing?
Oh, wow. That is a great question. I mean, where I grew up in the outskirts of Utica in a very rural area. I mean, Utica is not a big place to begin with, but then I lived in a small village outside of it. But that experience built me. That's who I am as a foundation. That's where I spent 18 years of my life, and where I would go back to home. I would go back there until I was about 25. And so I think living in a spacious place, lots of cows, not a lot of people around me. I had few friends, a very small school. That shaped who I am as a person, and I think shaped how I navigate the world. That's the lens through which I see the world. I'm a small town girl living in a lonely world, type of thing. And I think each place similar. It has shaped me. There's a really great quote from, I believe it's Ralph Waldo Emerson, and he said about reading, he said, just like every meal I've eaten has made me who I am, each book has made me who I am, even if I can't remember the book that I read the way that I can't remember each meal that I've eaten. And I feel that same way about all of the places that I've lived. They have shaped me. They have given me experiences, exposed me to different ideas and new ways of thinking and all sorts of different people. And even within the states, each state has its own kind of culture. Upstate New York is very different from Los Angeles, which is very different from, even upstate New York is different from rural Wyoming, which is different than coastal cities in Florida, which is different than Minneapolis, Minnesota. Like every place is so unique. And certainly those experiences as well, particularly when I'm writing plays, where I'm writing fiction, I'm thinking about character. I would venture to guess that being exposed to all sorts of different cultures and people has helped me develop character, because I know so many different kinds of people, and I can then suppose how my characters are going to react. Or I have also inspiration from real life experiences that I've either experienced or witnessed that I can use in my writing to propel me through a story. So, I mean, that's only a guess. I'm sure that there could be a psychoanalyst on the show to interpret how all of these places probably shaped who I am and who I am as a writer. I don't have that kind of background, so I can only suppose from an artistic lens.
I had this discussion. I had several expats with whom I had this discussion regarding living abroad, living outside of your home country, home city, and so on. And I got from almost all of them the same feeling that it makes you less ignorant to cultures.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And it makes you have less things that you already in advance think about different culture. Like you have something in your head which is set up from the culture. Like, I don't know, the Romanians are stealing. I'm coming from Romania, so nobody can blame me. But you don't have that, because when you live abroad, you get to know all these different cultures, and you think that you get to see that everything, everyone has their different kind of people inside it. So you have the good guys, the bad guys, and every forest has its dry spots. And I think the benefit of living abroad is this, that it makes you less ignorant and noticing everyone. And I think if you can take this in your writing, that opens your world to a completely different stage than it would be if you only knew your hometown.
100%. Yeah. Mark Twain said the antidote to prejudice is travel, or travel is the antidote to prejudice, or something like that. And I find that I still have preconceived notions about places, and then I go there, and then I'm wrong. Once upon a time, I was a nanny for a small band that went on tour, and one of the places that they toured was Texas. I had a lot of preconceived notions of the state of Texas, the kinds of people who live there, and what I was expecting to see, and I was wrong. I was wrong. There are all sorts of different people, not just the kind that you see stereotypical on the television or what you read about in the news or whatever. All sorts of different people, beautiful cultures in all the different cities that I went to. I went to El Paso, and I was in Houston, Dallas, and I was wrong. So I'm still learning that lesson, even as perhaps as well traveled as I am, I still fall into those traps, and then am humbled. Am humbled by my experience. Yeah.
Absolutely. What drew you towards storytelling, towards poetry in the first place?
That's a heavy question too. I think I've always been primed for the stage. As young as 4 years old, I was a recital pianist. I was in a music school. I had broken my arm, dislocated my shoulder when I was little, and as part of my physical therapy to get the dexterity back in my hands, my parents put me in piano lessons. There was a woman who, her name's Jeanette. She's a lovely lady. Hi, Jeanette, if you're listening. She had a piano school inside of her home. She just taught piano lessons out like within her home. And I would go once a week. And part of that was that you performed in the biannual recitals. And I think I loved the applause. I loved the attention from an early age. And so I think that I have just always been primed to be a performer. Yeah, when I was age 10 in fifth grade, I was selected to give a speech at my fifth grade graduation. And again, I loved that attention. And yeah, I don't think there were that many opportunities growing up in the rural area that I lived. But then when I was in college, I performed more in theater, even though I was going to school for college or science. And when I went to graduate school in Portugal, I went for ecology. I still had this itch, I guess, to write and to tell my story and have other people hear it. And when I was living in Jackson, Wyoming, they have for a very rural area in Wyoming, they have a very vibrant art scene. And that's really where I found my community. Jackson is known to be a ski town. It's a resort town with Olympic skiers and very elite people going there to ski, like Aspen in Colorado. And I don't ski. And living in a resort town where it's known for its skiing and its snow, and you're one of the few dozen people who don't ski, you have to find a different niche. And my niche was playwriting and storytelling. There was a monthly story slam that I participated in and oftentimes won. I was considered an all-star storyteller. And I felt very welcomed by that community. I felt like I fit in there. And I think all of those little steps of validation pushed me toward where I am today. So each little step where, I wrote a play and it won a contest, small contest. There's only like 5 other competitors, but, I still won. And that little validation pushes me forward. I didn't start writing poetry in particular until after my father was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer. And as a coping mechanism, I started writing poetry. And I never wrote poetry before then. I wasn't interested in poetry. I didn't own poetry collections. I had read poetry, but it wasn't my thing. I just felt compelled to write a poem in a moment of desperation, I guess. Desperation to feel some sort of solace and reprieve as I was watching my father slowly lose his life. And I never stopped. So that was 5 years ago. And I've never stopped. And again, I had these little validations along the way. I had one poem published in a literary magazine. And then another, and then another. And then, I'm submitting my work to some poetry contest. And look at that, I won one. And then I won another. And then suddenly I had enough material to produce a full-length collection. And look at that, a publisher wants to publish my collection. And so And there was a lot of rejection along the way. So I'm not saying that it was just win after win after win. Of course not. But through those rejections, when you get that one acceptance, you just cling to it. You cling to it so hard. And then it helps you to take that next step. And, now I'm here. I have 2 poetry collections published, and I'm working on my travel memoir, Iceland Still. And I'm a, full-time freelance copy editor and proofreader. Writing and words fill up my whole life. I don't do anything with ecology that I have a master's degree in. I don't do anything with that. I mean, other than maybe writing some poems about nature, but other than that, I don't have any kind of like paid profession in ecology or the sciences. Poetry and writing and storytelling has pretty much taken over my life at this point.
Was a bit kind of go with the flow for you? Like you did that, you liked it, you got a bit of confirmation, then you did the other thing, you see, okay, I like this as well, it's working. Was a bit of going with the flow and ignoring the rejections?
Yeah, yes. And if I have to say anything about my grad program, which was, good. I'm not saying that it was bad. I'm just saying that I don't use that degree. But what it did teach me was to have a thick skin. Because when you're writing a 100-page master's thesis, dissertation, you're going to get a lot of critical feedback. And I remember the first draft that I had written 33 pages of my dissertation, and I brought it to my advisor, Marisa, who is a lovely, gentle, wonderful woman. And she very gently, kindly told me that I should just start over after writing 33 pages. And I walked home weeping in the street, not even caring who saw me, sobbing as I walked home. Knowing how much work and energy I put into writing those 33 pages, she said I should just start over. But that experience helped me with dealing with all these rejections, and there are a lot. I told people that, for every one acceptance that I got, I had at least 10 other rejections, at least 10. And there could have been more. There was one year, and what also helps is that there's a community of people who count their rejections. You try to get to 100 during a year. So it's called Rejection 100. It's like a hashtag. So you try to get to 100 rejections in the year. That one helps you to feel kind of good about a rejection because it gets you one step closer to getting 100, but that it also encourages you to send your work out. A lot of people get stuck with the fear of sending their work out in the first place because they're afraid of getting rejected. And so then they don't end up sending it out at all. And one year I had over 400 rejections, but that was also the year that I had my first Pushcart Prize nomination. I had been published like 40 times. I had received awards. And if I was afraid of rejection, I would never have even tried for those things. So you have to just laugh in the face of rejection and I think also have a deeper why of what you're doing. Are you writing and submitting your work only for the external validation of the editors of the literary magazines? If that's true, then when you get rejected, it probably feels a lot worse. But if you have this bigger why of I'm writing poetry for this community, or I'm writing poetry to pay homage to my father who passed away, or I'm writing poetry so that people who have experienced what I experienced don't feel so alone, whatever it is, then you have this greater why to keep going with whatever it is.
That's a nice message. That's a nice message that fits also in the theory that I keep saying. If you do something, do it for yourself, and if you like it, that's the most important. And if you like it, you will be successful one day in one way or the other. Or even if you don't care about that because you liked what you did. So that's the most
Absolutely. That's
important.
right. That's absolutely right. And yeah, I mean, there is some truth to that. And I also believe in revisiting your work. If you have a poem or a collection of poems or a travel memoir that is getting rejected, it doesn't hurt to go through it and revise it again, or to bring it to a critique group and have others give insights as to what could be strengthened. You can also listen to what they say and say, I don't like that advice, or that's stupid, or that's not authentic to what I want to sound like, or whatever it is. You can always reject their suggestions. You are ultimately the one in charge of your work, but it doesn't hurt to think about why that's happening.
Listening is always good. Listening is always good. What you do with the feedback, it's your problem. But taking feedback in, it's absolutely recommended.
100%. Yeah.
This year, we have so you have a celebration in your career, and it will be the 10th anniversary of Mommy, Why Am I a Bird?
Yeah.
Was that the first published book?
Yes. My children's book, I wrote that during my grad school experience. I worked in a preschool on I had the question of, well, let me go back a little bit. One thing that I struggled with in my grad school program was that I felt like there was a kind of tacit competition to see how obscure your research can be and how difficult it is to understand and complicated and involved. And it almost felt like a badge of honor if you had some very complicated, hard to understand concept that you were researching. And so to kind of not protest against that, but kind of be a counter voice to that point of view, I asked the question, could I teach complicated concepts, ecological concepts to preschoolers? Can I make it so simple that even preschoolers can understand it? And the answer is yes. I mean, you have to start with the basics. So my dissertation was the exploration and development of early childhood ornithology. So I introduced the concept of birds. We lived in a city, so we're not necessarily seeing a lot of diversity in birds, but they do see birds. They're not going to see frogs and turtles in the middle of the streets, but they will see pigeons and crows and doves and, other kinds of common birds, magpies. And they're easy to see, easy to observe. So, can I teach some evolutionary concepts to children who are ages 4 to 6 years old? Can I teach them that birds have different kinds of beaks because of the different kinds of things that they eat? Can I teach them that they have different kinds of nests? Can I teach them that they have different means of flying? Even the patterns that they fly are different. And the answer is yes. You can teach them. You can introduce concepts of just first, what is a bird? What makes a bird different from other animals? You can show them shapes. Look at these beaks, how they're different shapes. And then also introduce the concept of different birds eat different things. A pelican isn't going to eat what a crow eats. An eagle is not going to eat what a sparrow eats. And why is that? And throughout the year, I added extra things. So we're learning these basic concepts, and then eventually we got to ecology and environmental stewardship. My project ended with these little kids partnering with different entities throughout the whole community to build bird boxes that we then hung in the botanical garden. So we had this big community-wide event. So many people were involved, the scouts and art groups and parents, of course, and we got all of the wood donated to us from the local prison. And some of the prisoners who worked in a wood shop, they actually cut out pieces that would be easily put together to build the bird boxes. So, I mean, this was really a community-wide effort. And then we had different groups come in to help decorate them, paint them, and then we ended up hanging them in the local botanical garden. So, I mean, all of that was built up to, I can do something to help birds. Even I, as a 4-year-old, can do something to help birds. And so I wanted to kind of counteract this voice of, oh, my research is too complicated, and oh, it's so involved, and you really have to have this kind of background to understand it, and maybe like a sense of elitism. And I wanted to combat that and say, I'm doing something that I want to see if preschoolers can understand it if I start at a foundational level. And they did. And one of the products of that was this children's book, Mommy, Why Am I a Bird? That was inspired by the preschoolers, and can I teach them what makes a bird special compared to other animals? And that conversation between me and the 4-year-olds, well, why do you think a bird is a bird? What makes it special? And, well, maybe because it flies. Oh, well, insects can fly and bats can fly and they're not birds, and so the children's book has this little bird asking her mommy, why am I a bird? And they have the same conversation. And then, of course, it ends with, well, maybe it's because you have feathers. And yes, no other creatures on the planet have feathers, only birds. That's what makes a bird a bird.
How was that received in your field of study? Because usually people like to think that they are doing complicated stuff to feed their ego. So in every field of study, everyone feeds their ego with thinking, wow, there is no one on this planet that can understand what I'm doing because I'm so special.
Yeah, exactly. I think a lot of people were surprised. I got a good grade on it. And,
okay.
Of course, I passed. So I had an oral defense. I had to present my work in front of all of my classmates, some of them whom I had never met because we were just completely in different, areas of study. And there were a panel of professors who then asked follow-up questions about my work, and I had to answer questions. And everybody's research was, very the intricacies of defense mechanisms within the serine family of, whatever, and just very straightforward, very plain. And then I come up and I'm like, exploration and development of ornithological education for preschoolers. And it's all like in different colors and in preschool font. And I have my title photo was a stick figure drawing of a bird that a 3-year-old had drawn. and people who didn't know me, they're just like, what is this? What is going on? I had the added challenge, though, because I was doing all of my work in a preschool, was that I had to learn Portuguese. And other people that were in this international program, all of the classes and everything were taught in English. And that was the common language. Of course, that's my native language. But I learned Portuguese because the 3, 4, 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds don't speak English. And so to be able to interact with them, I had to learn Portuguese pretty quickly, at least at a preschool level. And I did a pretty good job.
Chapeau. I've traveled due to my work a lot in Portugal, and even though it's not far away from Romanian, which is my native language, my mother's language, it's still not so easy to learn. So that's why I'm saying chapeau, especially coming from English.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah. I think I got bonus points for that, was that I was an American working in a Portuguese preschool. And I think that they saw my effort, that all of my videos that I recorded of the conversations that I had with these children, I'm speaking Portuguese in them. And I think the professors were very impressed with that.
But I have to ask you, that why Portugal?
Well, it was part of this international master's in ecology
Mm-hmm.
program, and it was so much cheaper than going to school in the States. So I did get into a couple of grad schools in the States. And I mean, this was in 2010 that I was applying, in 2011 that I was accepted. And I applied to Syracuse and then also Tufts University. And Tufts, it was going to be like $70,000 a year or something. And that was in 2011. Maybe it wasn't that much, but it was going to be an exorbitant amount of money. And they offered me like a $2,000 a year scholarship. It's like, that's, that's nothing. That's nothing.
So basically,
And
one month in the US was the complete university in Portugal.
yeah, and also the cost of living compared to United States was a lot less. And I shared an apartment. It was a large apartment with 3 other students. And I had this beautiful apartment. I paid like 120 euros a month, and it was fully furnished. It had all of the utilities included, water, electricity, Wi-Fi. It had a backyard with fruit trees, blossoming fruit trees. It was right in the center of downtown. And it included, once a week, a cleaning lady came and would clean the apartment. She would make my bed, and she would, like, clean. If you left dishes in the sink, she would do all the dishes. She was a wonderful, wonderful person. And that was 120 euros a month. And that was expensive. I had like one of the most expensive apartments of all my friends. They shared accommodations and were paying like 60, 70 euros a month for a shared accommodation. And yeah, oh my gosh, it was just so much less expensive. And
I have to say,
groceries were less expensive, just everything.
it's kind of crazy that you get to travel all across the ocean, and you get the cheaper possibility to study, and a cheaper
Mm-hmm.
possibility to live, and you need l- much less money that you would need in the US, which is close to your home. This is kind of crazy, I must say. This is something which
Yeah.
is basically an in-depth wrong with the society. I have to say, it's
No,
unbelievable.
I agree. One of my favorite stories to tell was when I was living there, I ended up having a gallbladder attack. I think I was under a lot of stress or something. And so I went to the university medical center, to receive treatment. I was in so much pain. And when I was leaving, and, I'm still in a lot of pain, the woman at the front desk, she's like, "I'm so sorry, because you are not from Portugal, you're going to have to pay for your appointment. It's not free for you as an international student." And I said, like, in my mind, I'm like, "Oh my God, what is this going to cost?" Just having American mentality, right? Because I mean, even last year, I was fighting for my life, basically, against the insurance company. They were going to charge me for things that they should have covered. And I fought for over 9 months to get them to cover some of these thousands and thousands of dollars worth of expenses. And then she said, it'll be 6 euros. And I was just like, six euros? And she's like, 6 euros. I'm like,
Per minute?
okay,
Per minute,
like,
or
like, take my money. I'll come every day. I'll come every day for 6 euros.
like
Like,
I
I
had in
was,
the I had in one of the previous episodes Zoe, who was originally from US as well, and she moved to Spain, and she said she had a really bad condition, and she was feeling sick, and she was vomiting all the time, and she said, I will not go to the emergency, to the ER. And her boyfriend said, "Yeah, why not? Yeah, I cannot take another $5,000 invoice from the ER." I said, "No, you don't. It's pain. It's okay. You can go to the emergency. And it's okay."
Yeah.
We are going to the political discussions, but this with the health with healthcare is a general thing, which I think it's bothering everyone in the US constantly, because it can a sickness is the small difference between living in a normal life and or being in depth, and this is not normal. This is not how the world should work.
I agree.
Um, Anne-Marie, you had your first book published, your first kids novel, which I find quite interesting. I'm reading a lot of kids novels at the moment, and yours was interesting, I must say. I liked it.
Oh, thank you.
And but then you switched to poetry, and you said, like you already mentioned, you started writing poetry out of grief, or to help you deal with the grief or to the pain.
Mm-hmm.
It was not yet grief, but it was already pain, because you knew that at one moment in time the inevitable will happen. You wrote that initially for you. How hard was to get it published for you? Not the process of publishing, but I mean for your feelings, because it kind of shows your vulnerability towards outside.
Yeah. In terms of like the emotional challenge, I would say that it wasn't challenging at all. That I feel like I'm a very open person in general, that there are not many things, if anything, that I keep secret. First of all, I'm a terrible secret keeper. Never tell me a secret, because I forget who's not supposed to know. And I'll just like bring it up casually, forgetting that it's a secret. So never tell me a secret. And I think that's also a testament.
It's so funny.
It's true. Never tell me a secret. I can't keep it a secret. But I think that's a testament to how open I live my life, that really nothing is a secret to me. And especially if somebody asks me a direct question, I will have a really hard time not answering truthfully. So I think it was Toni Morrison who said something like, if the book that you need to read doesn't exist, you need to write that book. And that was my book, Survived By. The book that I needed to read a how-to guide. I needed to know exactly what I was going to feel and experience, so that I had like a checklist. Okay, check. And the stereotypical denial, anger, sadness, the stages of grief, they didn't fit for me. I needed something more specific of not just what I was going to feel, but what I needed to do. What do I need to do right now? How do I get through this? And that's the book that I wrote. I wrote the how-to guide to tragedy based on what I was experiencing. I was writing it in real time as I was going through it. One of the steps is to cling to gratitude. Another is to control what you can control. Chaotically repeat is another step. And so in bringing it into the world, even through my vulnerability, and it's not, all beautiful, and my relationship with my father is so beautiful. I was also in a relationship at the time that was falling apart. We were trying to get married before my father passed away. I really wanted to have the experience of my father walking me down the aisle, and he was supposed to he was given a year to live. He only lived 4 months. He ended up dying 2 weeks before my wedding. So we ended up canceling and everything, but that was for the best, because my relationship was also unraveling. It was, I write the good, the bad, and the ugly in it. And I think that other people who are going through grief, the people who have read it, who have gone through grief or are going through grief, have expressed how helpful that book has been for them. And again, those little validations of hearing from others, that I was able to articulate what they wanted to say but didn't know how, that has further affirmed in me that being vulnerable, sharing the unshareable, showing this personal experience through my rage, because there's definitely rage in there, helped somebody else. And I knew that I had to get it into the world also because I wanted my father to live forever. And in this little way, he will. And everybody who reads it will know how wonderful he is. And I know a lot of people who have shitty dads, or they have shitty parents in general. I did not have a shitty dad. He was very loving and thoughtful and community minded. He was a good neighbor, and he set a really great example of what it means to be a good human being. And I write about that in this book. And so that was, again, my bigger why. I had to get this book published, even in the face of rejection. And this book also got rejected, which hurt a little bit because maybe a little bit more than other times, because it is so deeply personal to me. And when it would be rejected, how dare you reject this beautiful story about my incredible father? How dare you? I did take it a little bit more personally, but it just propelled me to keep trying. And eventually there was a publisher who did think it was beautiful and wanted to publish it. And thank you, Raven White at the Curious Corbett Publishing, for believing in this book and for publishing it and getting it out into the world, because I know that it has helped a lot of people. And even I read it out loud. I read for 2.5 hours on a marathon on YouTube Live on February 6th this year, which was the 5-year anniversary of my father's death. And it's still the book that I needed to read. As I read it, I think to myself, like, I feel bad for the woman who wrote this, who was writing this in real time. I want to give her a hug. I want to tell her that you will be able to think about your dad and tell stories about him and laugh and smile and remember him with joy instead of crumbling to the floor helpless. I want to reassure her that she's going to keep his memory alive and that she's doing a good job. So it's I still love reading it, even when I just read it again in February. I think it's a beautiful book, and I'm glad that others who have read it too have felt helped by reading it.
That's the most important. I said, as long as you think it's amazing, that's the only thing that matters. Everything else will come as a side effect. I keep saying this. You went on and you had the second poetry book, Mother, which got the 2023 Cinnamon Press Pamphlet Contest. How did that impact your career and your way of writing?
Yeah. So the second collection, I would say, is also a grief collection. I wrote that collection over time. It's a collection that centers around the idea of motherhood and wanting to become a mother and it not happening. It's not autobiographical the way that Survived By is. Survived By is really my story, a memoir in verse. Mother, verb is more a collection of poems. It's not a memoir. And it's my friends' stories, my family's stories, acquaintances' stories that I've heard from others. When you want to become a parent and it's not happening, suddenly you're hearing stories from everyone who wants to be a parent and it's not happening for them. And they're all different. The people who can't get pregnant at all, the people who can get pregnant but can't stay pregnant, the people who chose to have an abortion early in their life and now they can't get pregnant and now they're wondering if God is punishing them. The people who, they're all sorts of different stories of wanting to become a parent, or the people who aren't becoming parents because they don't have partners and they don't want to enter parenthood without a partner, or they're afraid to, or they don't have the money or resources to. So there are all sorts of different stories represented in that collection, as well as my own feelings of desperation to become a parent and it not happening. And ironically, March 13th, which is around the corner from this recording, will be its 1-year anniversary. And ironically, when it debuted on the launch party from Cinnamon Press, I was 9 months pregnant when it launched. And as I was reading poems from the collection, it almost felt like a betrayal to the community that I had formed with all of these different people who also were struggling to become parents. It was suddenly like I was no longer a part of that club. I'm in a different club now. Even though I know what that feels like, it almost felt like I was betraying those people that I had found community in with.
That's a painful thing, but I think it's important that someone decided to tell the stories because I think there are a lot of it's not easy to talk about the situation. It's not easy to talk about when you are involved, when you are in the middle of it. So when it's about you, it's always easier, and you always hear people gossiping about it, like you heard about this, you heard about that, but nobody's
whispering,
whispering, and nobody's able to have that discussion to say, it's okay, it's happening, you're not alone. And I think that's really important. So I decided to take this initiative to tell the stories, because I think not only for the ones that told their story, but I think also for the one also going now through this, it's important to know you're not alone. There are a lot of people going through the same issue, especially in this shitty, stressful world that we live in. And we should say it out loud. It's a fact that stress is one of the big disadvantages that we have, and one of the big reasons why people are not able to get pregnant. And I think it's important that everyone understands that they are not alone. Like,
you're right, that they are conversations that happen behind closed doors, and privately there is a lot of shame in it, and feelings of stigma. There are questions of what's wrong with me, why isn't this happening, and it's hard, and this is a way for me to open up those closed doors and have the conversation openly, and also, and like you said, say you're not alone. You're not alone in your struggle.
That's the most important. Anne-Marie, I would like to switch to Happy Iceland, because I think Happy Iceland, it will be an amazing book.
Thank you.
And I will say it in a few words. So the Happy Island is detailing the spontaneous 5-week journey that you had in Iceland, backpacking and hitchhiking. Quite important. That means a lot of contact with the locals. Anne-Marie, why the trip and why Iceland?
Yeah, so I do talk about this in the book. Why the trip and why Iceland? At the time that I booked the trip, I was living in Minneapolis. I was working as a nanny under the table, and not doing anything with my ecology degree, but feeling like I should be, and feeling frustrated that my career is going nowhere. I was also in a dead-end relationship. I was jumping from relationship to relationship, hoping this one is the one. And then, of course, being disappointed. And I was 29. I was looking at my 30th birthday upcoming. I had been saving my money because I did want to go to Iceland eventually. And I said, I'm going to go for my 30th birthday. My 2 previous birthdays had been ruined by the people that I was dating at the time. And so I said, I'm going to celebrate my 30th birthday alone because I don't want anybody to ruin it.
If then me.
Exactly. The only person who can ruin my birthday is me.
Exactly.
And I had wanted to go to Iceland for a while. The story behind that was that in 2011, before I left for my grad program, I was secretly in love with my friend. Actually, let me start over because I shouldn't say his name. So we'll cut this part out. So let me start over.
That was so no, I will just cut the name because they were so cool how you said it.
So I was secretly in love with my friend, and we had met up. At this point, we were living 3 hours apart from each other. I was staying with my parents until I was leaving, and he was living in Buffalo, New York, where I used to live. I had left Buffalo. I was getting ready to leave. And maybe 2 days, I think it was 2 days before I was supposed to get on a plane and go leave for 2 years, I met up with him at a restaurant that was halfway between us. And he was very excited about Iceland and traveling to Iceland. And he said, when you graduate from your program, let's go to Iceland together. So this would have been in 2013. And I said, okay. And so I had this idea in my head that we were going to go to Iceland together when I graduated in 2013. Of course, fall madly in love and, live happily ever after type of daydream, fairy tale, storybook, blah, blah. And we did stay in contact. He sent me postcards. I sent him postcards, and we chatted online, blah, Then in 2012, suddenly I got ghosted, just completely ghosted. And I saw on social media that he and his girlfriend were pregnant and going to get married. And so that was the explanation of why I got ghosted. And of course, we did not go to Iceland. I did not go to Iceland after I graduated because I had no money. I had so little money, I didn't even have a bank account. I couldn't even open a bank account because I didn't have enough money to open a bank account. I think you needed like $100, and I didn't even have $100. So I didn't go. But after I graduated, I still had it in my mind that I wanted to go to Iceland. And also Iceland is one of the happiest places in the world. There's the World Happiness Index, and it's always at the top. It's always at the top. I think Denmark is maybe up at the top too, but Iceland is always at the top. And I was really miserable in my life and wondering, why is it that I can't figure out my career? Why is it that I can't figure out a relationship? And what is it about me? What is it that I'm doing wrong? Why am I so sad all the time? Maybe if I go to Iceland, I can ask people there in the top of the World Happiness Index. Yeah, what brings you happiness? What brings you happiness? And I'm also not the kind of person who is organized. I'm not an organized person. I don't enjoy organizing either. I don't enjoy organizing an itinerary and having things set up to say, okay, I'm going to go to Iceland, and first I'm going to go here, and then I'm going to rent a car and I'm going to drive to this place, and then I'm going to go see this geological formation. I'm not that type of person. So in a way I was winging it, but then in another way I had somewhat of a structure. So I arrived in Iceland. I spent $1,000 on my ticket to go there, which was the majority of the money that I had saved was just spent on the ticket. And I knew I wasn't going to stay in hotels. I wasn't going to rent a car. And because I had traveled on my own, I knew I had some skills. I had some travel skills. I had hitchhiked before. I trusted myself to have good instincts about the people I was getting in cars with. And also I trusted myself to get out of a unsafe situation if I found myself in one. But most people in the world, I know a lot of people don't believe this, are very trustworthy, and they just want to help, and they are good people. So I asked a random airline worker about his happiest memories. I arrived at the airport. I found an airline worker on his break outside, and I'm sure he was not expecting me to ask him about his happiest memories. I'm in this like tattered rain jacket. I have this big backpack, and I have, my hair is in braids, and I have like a wolf beanie on. I very much look like some sort of backpacking tourist. And I walk up to him and I said, "Excuse me." I'm sure he was thinking I was going to ask him directions or about the airport of some sort. I'm like, "Could you please tell me about a time that you felt really happy?" And yeah, he had the exact same reaction you just reacted. Just like confused, scrunched forehead, scrunched eyebrows. What? And I was like, "Yeah, could you just tell me about a time in your life in Iceland that you felt really happy?" And he told me about camping with his family and friends in a place called Vestmannaeyjar. And I wrote down all the notes, and he was done with his cigarette break. So he started striding back to the airport. And I started out walking down the road out from the airport with my thumb out, ready to go find Vestmannaeyjar. And
in which month was this?
it was I arrived at the end of June, and I spent 5 weeks there. I left at the first week of August.
Okay, so not that cold.
It was cold. there were definitely
cold.
Yeah, I wasn't there were a couple times that I felt afraid of the cold because it was so cold, and there were many nights I brought the warmest clothes I had. I had thermals. I had my windbreaker rain jacket. I had wool socks. I had my wool beanie. I had gloves that the tops of them could turn into mittens, or you could pull them back and they'd show your fingers. And I had all of my best gear, which, granted was not the best in the world, but it was the best that I had. And there were many nights that I was doing crunches in my sleeping bag to build up heat in my core in order to stay warm, or that I didn't sleep at all because I was just shivering the whole night. And that was putting my extra wool socks in my bra to try and give myself even more core insulation. And I was very cold many nights, sleeping under my tarp in my sleeping bag. But yeah, so anyway, so I had a map. I did have a map with me, and I found where Vestmannaeyjar was to make sure I was going down the right highway to ask for a ride. And it took me a few days to get there, but I ended up getting there. And once I was there, then I found another random Icelandic person and asked them about their happiest memories. And again and again and again and again. And some places were very simple. It was, my happiest memories was playing basketball with my friends. And so I went to go find those basketball courts. A woman's happiest memories was on her aunt and uncle's farm as a child. So I went to go find her aunt and uncle's farm. And nobody said their happiest memories were at the Blue Lagoon. So I ended up not going there.
This is so nice. I have to be honest. This sounds crazy, but it's so nice because at the end you have a goal, but you don't have a goal. And this makes it amazing. Like to be free, that freedom of just, you know what? I'm just asking this guy, and he will tell me my next destination, and that's amazing. How was so you went with the expectation of finding happiness? I would dare to say that, even though it's a huge goal. What was the reality of Iceland?
Yeah, I mean, while I was there, I did a lot of crying. I did a lot of crying while I was in Iceland.
To be happy afterwards.
Yeah. But I did find that there was a pattern. So like I said, the gentleman who was happy playing basketball with his friends, I also asked all sorts of different people. There were 2 young girls that I just happened to encounter. They were about 12 years old. And I asked them about their happiest memories. And they said playing like a hide and go seek type of game in their shared backyard where they both used to live. And so I went to go find the neighborhood where they used to live. And another gentleman that I had stopped to ask, he said that he felt really happy just that day watching his son dive into the public pool for the first time. So I went to go find the public pool. And what I realized that was, none of these stories were extravagant. Nobody said, oh, when I got this big raise at my job, or when I bought this really fancy car, I was so happy. None of the stories were like that. They were simple. They were simple moments of joy. And I did take that away with me. And to this day, my partner, I have a forever partner now, and we have a child, as I mentioned. Every night before we go to bed, we ask each other what delighted you today. Not what you're grateful for, not, what extraordinary thing happened. No, just what delighted you. And they can be as simple as, when our son, does something silly. Right now, he's learning how to use a straw to drink water and milk, and it's pretty funny. So, the wonderful, cute things that he does. But it can also be like, oh, it delighted me when the squirrel jumped in the bird feeder, and that was so funny. Or this delicious dinner that we had tonight delighted me. It delighted me to talk to my mom today on the phone. It delighted me that I went to the mailbox and we didn't have any bills in the mailbox today. And we spend 10 or 15 minutes talking about the things that delighted us that day. And I will say that it has definitely increased my happiness.
Thank you for watching. As I said at the beginning of the episode, we are giving away one of Anne-Marie's books. And I'm talking about Mother. What do you have to do to enter the giveaway? Just subscribe to the channel and leave a comment below and tell us exactly like Anne-Marie said, what delighted you today. We'll select a winner in the morning when we get 1,000 subscribers. Enjoy the rest of the episode.
And I will say that it has definitely increased my happiness. Do I have a lucrative career? Nope. Do I no longer have sadness or grief? No. There's still a lot of sadness and grief. Do I have annoyances throughout the day? Yes. And do I suffer just like I used to suffer? I would say mostly yes. So the one thing that I figured out was that I do have a partner who's reliable and steady and emotionally stable, and he brings me a lot of joy every day, having him as a wonderful dad and partner.
Go
ahead.
So the thing that you discovered, I have to say, it's coming out from all these crazy rich people that got extremely rich to different reasons, and they realized that that could never make them happy. And I've seen, I don't know what Jim Carrey said in the last days, which is exactly that. I hope that everyone would have all the money in the world to realize that doesn't make you happy, and that the small things that are happening every day is the things that we have to cherish, and they are making us happy. And I have to say, you discovered this without going through the hustle of getting all the rich and famous stuff, which is
too bad. Bad.
No, we have a different opinion there. We stand different there. I think it's yes. I know. I get your point, but still, I think that you are proving a bigger. I don't know if it's grammatically correct, but you are proving a better or bigger maturity and a better understanding of how life works when you do manage to do this without having unlimited amount of money. Because when you have them, you realize that they haven't brought you anything, so you're searching for something else, and you manage to do this without having the other side, which I think it's the thing that that everyone that will have the opportunity to read this book should cherish.
Yeah, I mean, that is my biggest lesson that I've taken with me. And even on the day that my father died, which is the worst day of my life, there are still moments that delighted me. It delighted me that the last food that he ate on this earth was banana cream pie. I love that. I love that he got banana cream pie. The way that the nurses treated me after he passed away was so tender and so gentle. And the way that they treated my mother when I had to go get her. I walked out of the hospital barefoot. I didn't even have shoes on. All I thought was I have to go get my mother. And I drove barefoot to go get her and bring her to be with him. And the way that the nurses treated us was just so kind, so gentle. They knew how vulnerable we were. And just being able to be together in that moment was also, I was so grateful. I wouldn't say delighted that we were weeping together, but I think a lot of people don't get that. They are alone. They are alone when they're weeping for their loved one, and we got to be together for that. So even through the hardest times of my life, there are still moments that delight me. When my son was born, he failed to thrive. And when he was 3 days old, we were in the emergency room with a breathing but lifeless baby. And when we got to the emergency room, there was a parking spot right in the front. We didn't have to go searching for a parking spot. My partner dropped me off at the door, and he was able to just park right there and be right there with us. That delighted me. Seeing those things that even when you are so scared, so stressed. I mean, I had just given birth 3 days ago. I was still hemorrhaging. My ankles and my legs were still swollen. I was tired. I couldn't carry this baby in a car seat. I was weak too. And I needed help in addition to my son needing help. And that was also just a terrible, terrible, terrible day. Terrible, one of the worst 24 hours of my life. And there were still moments that delighted me. A nurse brought me hot chocolate. And she didn't ask. She just brought it to me. It was just so nice. It was so nice. It was nice that we got prioritized, that we didn't have to wait, that they saw this sick baby. We were the first ones to go in. We didn't have to wait around for an hour or something like that. And just being able to see those moments of delight and hold on to them. You have to cling to them in order for happiness to be something that you cultivate regularly.
This random acts of kindness, like you said, this one that the nurse has done, I think it's so impressive because it's always coming from the people that you don't expect them to come. What was the most surprising act of kindness that you encountered in Iceland?
There's so many. So many people were so generous to me, but one story pops out in my head in particular. I was picked up hitchhiking, heading to the North Fjords. I was looking for a really nice cafe that a couple felt very happy eating at the night before. So I was going to go find the cafe where they had dinner. And I was in the car with this couple, lovely, lovely human beings. And on the way to the North Fjords, they were going to stop in kind of this really rural area because the wife knew that her friend had a summer home there somewhere. Even though it was freezing, it's still a summer home because technically it was June or it was July because it was actually the day before my birthday. And we stopped at this woman's house. Well, first we were just like in the area, and the wife rolled down the window, asked a random stranger like, oh, do you know where so-and-so lives? And of course he did. So he's like, oh yeah, her house is over there. And so then we end up going to that house. The wife gets out and she just goes up and knocks on the door. She's not expected. She's not invited. She just goes and knocks on the door to see if her friend is there. And her friend comes out. She's delighted to see her. And so they're chatting. And then her friend's husband comes out. So then the wife's husband, who's in the car with me, gets out to go talk. And then I'm sitting in the car and I think, well, I don't want to be rude, so I'll get out too. Even though the only words I know in Icelandic are like blue water, the word for tern, like the bird tern. I knew how to say where. I mean, very limited vocabulary. And so I get out, and I'm wearing all of the clothes that I own with me. And I was feeling the wind whip through my windbreaker. I had my hat on, I had my gloves on, and I was just thinking to myself, I will need to find a place to camp behind a big rock or within some trees if I can find them, so that I have some shelter from this wind, because even with my tarp, I'm going to be freezing cold tonight. And I'm just thinking to myself, I'm not interacting with them at all because they're all speaking in Icelandic, not in English. And then all of a sudden, the wife's friend runs into her house, and she comes out with an Icelandic sweater, handmade. They call it lapapesa. And she explains to the wife in Icelandic, and then the wife then explains to me in English. She said, my friend says that you look cold and maybe you could use this sweater. It belonged to her son. She made it for her son, but he's outgrown it and he can't wear it anymore. And I almost started weeping. It was like she read my mind. She read my mind. And it was the day before my birthday, so it felt like a birthday present, not only from her, but from the universe, too. It was like the universe was like, you've been doing a good job. You deserve a little something. And I was telling you, like, on the trip, I would stuff my wool socks in my bra to try to stay even warmer. And after she gave me that sweater, I was never cold again. I never shivered. I slept so well that night. I was so warm. It was so thick, and it was designed for like a teenage boy. So it was a little bit big on me, so I could still wear my other clothes underneath it. I was
Perfect.
so warm. And she didn't know me. I was literally a stranger that her friend picked up off the side of the road.
Crazy.
Didn't know me at all, but just willing to give me this thing that she handmade for her son, but that he outgrew, so he wasn't going to wear it, and she gave it to me. I still have it.
Random acts of kindness. Like, amazing. You were talking about cold. You were talking about trying to do everything that was in your power to hold on to your warmth, to your heat, to your body heat. Was there a moment in your journey when you felt lost, when you said, now I will go back. I will go back now"?
There weren't moments where I thought I'll go back, because I had a plane ticket for August. I knew that I was going to leave eventually. But there were moments where I was crying, wondering, why am I here? What am I doing this for? Why am I alone? There were moments where I was sad to be alone and to not have anybody right there to either help me or to commiserate with. Particularly when it was cold, rainy. There was one day that I was trying to hitchhike, and it was downpouring rain. I had my rain jacket cinched all the way up. My gloves were soaked, and my socks in my shoes were soaked. And I was trying to get a ride for over 5 hours. I was walking, trudging, and my legs were tired. My arm was tired from holding my arm out in a thumb, trying to get a ride. And a couple of cars with like young 20-something-year-old men were like not harassing me because they didn't continuously do it, but like one car stuck their thumbs out the windows to say like, yeah, thumbs up, as they drove by in their giant SUV. Another one, mimed a vulgar gesture to me as they were going by. And it was just like, why? Why are you being... And they certainly were not Icelandic. Those were certainly tourists, by the way. Those were certainly tourists. Those were not Icelandic people. I would bet my life on it. I'm freezing cold in the rain, soaked like a drenched rat, and you are nice and warm and dry in your rental cars. Like, why are you being mean to me? There's just no reason for it. Particularly in that moment, I felt lost. And where are the kind people? Where are the kind people?
Where are the happy people of Iceland?
Yeah. And the next car that stopped for me was a news crew from Denmark. They had they were there documenting the Euro Cup that was going on that year. And Iceland was like third in the Euro Cup or something. They had beaten, I think, England.
Yeah.
And it was a big, or maybe they had beaten a team and they were going to play England. Yeah,
they were beaten
and
England.
it was, and that was a big deal. So they had they were coming to talk to Icelandic people about what they thought about it. And in the meantime, they were stopping at these different locations and filming. And as part of their, I guess, eclectic montage of Iceland, they picked up a hitchhiker, and I drove around with them for a couple hours, and they said, oh well, we're gonna stop at this place and this place along the way, and I'm like, that is fine, as long as I'm not in the rain. I will go with you anywhere. I will go with you anywhere. And I did get to warm up for a while because they had a nice warm Jeep.
Was that the moment when you thought this needs to be a book? Or was it a different one?
It wasn't until after I got back. I had this notebook full of notes. I knew I wanted to journal about it. And I kept a lot of notes because when I did have Wi-Fi, I would update my friends and my family on my Facebook of what I was doing and who I met and where I had been with the pictures that I had on my primitive iPhone at the time. And so I had this notebook full of all the people and all the experiences that I had. And it wasn't until after I got back, or maybe it was like as I was leaving, I was like, oh no, now I have to learn how to write because I have to turn this into a book. I have to create a book about this. And then I did. I started my journey learning how to write. I started by asking my friends that I knew wrote. And I just started by asking them, where do I start? How do I learn how to write? And what are your recommendations of books I can read or courses I can take? And I really started from the bottom up.
Everything that you have done based on the notes. That means, and you have done it. Did also the Facebook posts help in writing it?
Well, the Facebook posts were really based on my journal. So
exactly.
they were more or less the same. Yeah.
Okay.
But the photos are definitely helpful when I was going back and writing descriptions of things. Then I had the photos that I could literally look at and use for reference. Yeah.
Okay. You written the book. Now you were facing the publishing part or the challenges of the publishing part. You were a finalist with the book for the Wanderlust travel book contest.
Yes.
How did that help you towards publishing?
Yeah, again, all of these little steps of validation push me forward, and I have a bigger why. I need to get this book out to say thank you to everybody who helped me and who was a part of this journey. It's the way that I want to give back to them, that I feel like I can give back to them. And I just want to tell the world how wonderful they are through this book. And yeah, so I mean, like I said, I really started from the bottom, and being a finalist for the contest, I actually won the contest.
Okay.
But in working with that publisher, they essentially wanted to self-publish my book on Amazon, but then split the royalties of the book publication. And I know enough about the literary industry to know that that wasn't a good deal. And so I ended up walking away from the contract, and that was in 2022, so 3 years ago. I bet on myself. And I said, I bet I can find a different avenue for this book that'll be better. I thought it would happen right away. It still hasn't happened yet. But I did get a lot of good editorial feedback from that book. My book, through that process, did go through another round of revisions. I learned more about the craft of writing that I didn't know before. And so I was able to go through my entire book, use those helpful pro tips, and make my book even stronger. And then most recently, last summer, I was accepted into a mentorship with the Association of Writers and Writing Programs, which is very, big deal. It was my third year applying for the mentorship, and the first 2 times I didn't get in. So I felt very lucky that I got in this third time. And my mentor, Laura Carney, who wrote a wonderful travel memoir called My Father's List, she discovered her father's bucket list 10 years after he had passed away, and she went on this quest to complete it for him. And so she's my ideal reader. She's around, 20 to 40 years old, adventurer, solo female traveler. And so her feedback, I knew, was going to be very integral to how this book continues. And she loved the book. My ideal reader loved the book. It just was so validating to me. She said I was such a beautiful writer. The way that I wrote about the landscapes and the weather and the people was so vivid, and she just loved it so much. She thought it was so beautiful, and she helped me to flesh out my epilogue. So my epilogue was more reflective of, from 10 years ago or 9 years ago, and didn't talk at all about my current partner or my child or what my life is like now. And she's like, people want to know what you're doing now. And so she helped me with that. And the book is even more, is even better than it was. And so she presented my book to her agent for consideration. I mean, I have sent this book out to like 300 agents now from over the course of 9 years, maybe even 400. And I'm not exaggerating. The first round of agents that I sent it out to 8.5 years ago was 120. I sent out 120. I got 120 no's. So, and since then I have gone through these rounds of sending it out to a lot of places, and then, getting rejection, or just ghosting, which is a rejection too. And her agent said that yes, it was a beautiful book and that I was a beautiful writer, but because my internet presence and my social media wasn't robust, that she would have a hard time selling it to a publisher. They want authors to BYOB, bring your own buyers. And so they really are looking for people to have their own platform, their own base, their own guarantee that your book is going to sell, X amount of copies because you're bringing a clientele base with you already. And that was really hard to hear because it made me feel like all of the years of reading books, going to conferences, taking courses. I went back to school and got my degree in English. And, just all of the work that I have done. It felt like it was meaningless because I didn't have a certain number of followers on Instagram. And that
But
has been
that makes it,
frustrating.
that sounds so wrong. And Maria, I have to be honest, because at the end, if you would be able to have your own base, I see that quite often on the social media influencers who are self-publishing, but they are self-publishing to already a 500,000 subscriber or 1 million, who would buy any sorry shit that they are writing because it's written, but it is so. I mean, we have to be honest about stuff. And at the end, you are bringing a different perspective. I think you are bringing the writer's perspective, not the social media perspective. Or this is my opinion. Have you considered then self-publishing?
I have considered self-publishing. I'm very close to going there. I do have a couple more avenues that I want to explore. And in receiving that feedback, I have been putting in an effort to get my story out there more. I'm talking to you right now on Whereabout
Which
Tales.
I'm happy about.
Yeah, and this is a wonderful experience too. And also getting the positive feedback from you, and I have also solicited to some podcasts that specialize on like women's empowerment or the process of publishing. So not just about travel, but about being a female traveling alone, or the process of trying to get this book published, and all that has gone into it. And the fact that so many people are interested in this story and in my story has, again, been so validating. Those little steps of validation. People are interested in this story. People do want to read about it. And the reason why I haven't done this before is because I don't have a product to then say, so go pre-order my book, or go order my book, or read my book and review it, because it's not out there yet. But it will be. It will be. I don't know when, but it will be. It will be.
I have to tell you one thing. I'm following a lot the let's say the new trends in social media and stuff like this, and there is a piece of advice which I'm thinking since a long time to put in practice, but I've seen it in many different occasions. And this is just make a cover for your book, or make 20 different covers and put them out for sale. And you see which is the one that is selling the most, and then you print the book with that cover. And at the end, you don't have to have a final product. This is the crazy thing which is happening at the moment in the world.
Wow, that is wild. I actually did hire a graphic designer to design a cover for me, and she put into the world, and it's on my website. So that cover is just a tentative cover, but it's exactly what I was envisioning, and she brought it to life. And for eventually self-publishing, but every time I get a piece of advice, I follow it. So somebody said, well, if you set up the book the way that you're envisioning it, then when an agent or a publisher reads it, then they're going to see your vision. So I hired a layout designer too to create the interior of the book so that it appears not just in a Microsoft document, but that it appears in a PDF the way that I'm envisioning it. I have all of these different asides. I have little factoids about Iceland as I go along. I also write little miniature letters to different people. So like, dear, boy with the red backpack, dear vampire co-star, as I go along, and I have these little tiny letters that I have as well. And so they're not exactly part of the chapters of books. They're these asides. I also have background information. I have background information on that guy I told you that I was in love with. So I have like a separate section that's the background information on that. I have a separate section on when I was a foreign exchange student in high school. I have a separate section, all of these like kind of flashback contextual things that aren't part of the continued narrative. And so to give people more of an idea of how I'm envisioning the book, I had it professionally laid out. And I have found that it hasn't helped me yet. But if I do end up self-publishing, then I have that already done. So all I have to do is upload and have it available. But
And
I haven't made the jump yet.
And think about the multiple covers idea. It has to work. Everyone is talking about it. I had in one of the previous episodes someone who wrote a book about Kurt Cobain, and they also had a publish it in I think it was Genius Book Publishings. Also not a huge publisher, but she was also talking about the struggle of publishing, and that everyone is trying to make you change your story based on their request and not have your story told in your own way. And that's, I think it's also a creative challenge that everyone is having. But I'm pretty sure you'll find the right place and time to publish it, and I'm pretty sure you'll find also the right way. The story is amazing. Are you talking about the yellow cover, which is on your website?
That's right. Yes.
Because I will add it as a snippet in our discussions so that everyone can see it.
Thank you. Yeah.
And if one day you will have a pre-order link, just send it to me and I will add it in the show no captions.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Cross my fingers.
It will happen for sure. It will happen. You should not even worry about this. That's something which is coming, and like you said, the rejection is part of the path. And I think the self-publishing, and I'm coming back to what you said before regarding the publisher, that he wanted to self-publish on Amazon and share with you the
royalties.
The royalties. I think this is the biggest proof of how assholes people can be. Sorry that I have to say it, but this is exactly the truth, right? So.
But I knew enough to walk away. I knew enough. Like, I feel like some people would have been desperate enough to say, I'll take whatever deal because I just want this book published. I knew that I wanted more. And so I walked away. Even though I didn't have walk away power, I walked away anyway. I had to believe that there would be something bigger for me eventually.
Absolutely did the right thing. Anne-Marie, I also I always like to find a way to give some value to the people watching this. And I would like to ask you, what's the best piece of advice that you would have for someone who thinks about starting in this writing career?
Yeah, I mean, so much advice. The first thing I would say is find a community. Find a community of writers that are writing what you're writing. If you're writing sci-fi novels, find a group of people who are writing sci-fi novels. And the way that we live in the Zoom world now, and you're in Berlin, right, Paul?
I'm in Germany.
Yeah, in Germany, and I'm in the States, and we're still having this conversation. There is going to be somebody out there who writes what you write, or a whole community of people who are writing what you write. You'd need community members, 1, to keep you going, 2, to teach you. You don't even know what you don't know. So to teach you, and just to, have camaraderie and to commiserate, to cheer each other on, but then to also sulk together when things don't go right. And I think that has been so integral in how I progress in this career. I found other people who are just as passionate about poetry or about writing as I am. I trust them to give me feedback on my work. Their opinions I trust and think are worthy. Not all opinions are created equal, but I trust their opinions. And so when I provide work to them, I also know that they're going to be kind to me and not, just cut me down or need to feel like their work is better than mine or whatever else. So I think the first step is to find community members, because they also have resources that you don't have, and you have resources that they don't have. So then you're also sharing resources as well. They say, oh, did you read this book? Oh, no, I didn't even know that book existed. That still happens to me. I've been in this industry for a while and I am in it. I'm all the way diving deep into it. And a friend of mine just said, "Oh, have you heard of the emotion, the thesaurus?" No, I hadn't heard of the emotion thesaurus. And so I ordered myself a copy. It's one of the greatest books. And so just having other people know about these resources, it's really helpful. And then you can help your friends as well. So first step is to find community.
I think community is always an important topic because community is something that just keeps you going. Like you said, when you have someone that you can rely on to give you feedback, and it's not personal, it's not criticizing you, it's criticizing, is telling what you can improve to your work, and that's always healthy. And we are social creatures, and we take our energy from social connections. And it doesn't matter if it's a Zoom, Skype, or whatever it is. I think it is important that you find your community.
Absolutely.
How do you skip how do you go through the writer's block? Because I'm pretty sure you had it.
Well, I think that writer's block is more of writer's fear. You have an idea of what you want to write, but you're afraid that it's not going to be good. And so you need to start. And the only way to beat writer's block is to write something that's garbage. And I think because we're so afraid of writing something that's garbage, we don't write it at all. I actually don't have this problem because I'm not afraid to write garbage. And oftentimes when I start writing garbage, when I go back and rewrite it and revise it, then it ends up being good eventually. So when I've been wanting to write about my pregnancy and my birth journey, which has been a struggle for me to get started. But just writing out journal entries and narrative, private, not blogging or anything, has been a good start. I know that when a lot of things happen in your subconscious brain that you're not even aware of, and your subconscious brain is doing a lot of work. So when you think you're procrastinating, it might just be that you are not yet ready to tackle whatever the task is, whatever the topic is. And so I just trust in my subconscious brain to do the work. And when I am ready, when it is time for me to write about that subject, I know that I have this like pre-writing, this skeleton of what I want to write. I also have a novel in the works. I wrote the skeleton of a novel, but I don't have the skills to write fiction yet. One of my resources is the emotion thesaurus that I just got, that I've been reading through. And I know that when I am ready to take on writing a full-length novel, that I will do it. I don't feel like I'm in a block. I just feel like my subconscious brain is taking in information, and when I'm ready to take it on, I will. So I guess my suggestion for writer's block is to just trust the process and to be willing to write garbage in order to get to the treasure that lies underneath the garbage.
Steven Pressfield is talking in The War of Art. I don't know if you know the book. He's talking about the muse.
I have read that book, yes.
Do you believe in the muse?
I would say yes and no.
Okay.
I would say I have been kissed by the muse before, where suddenly I get an idea, I have to write it right now. And if I don't write it right now, I'm going to lose it. And, whatever's around, an envelope, a receipt, just my phone, and I'm sending myself a text and I'm writing it out. Yes. And I believe that you can cultivate the muse. You can invite the muse to come to you. You can sit down to write, and you start doing your free writing and writing whatever garbage. And then suddenly the muse appears, or you can write a letter to the muse and say, "I am ready for you. Please come."
Come.
Send them an invitation.
I'm here.
Yeah. I know people who have a ritual, which it's just like bedtime rituals. when you get ready for bed and you do things the exact same way, you train your brain to know, okay, now it's bedtime, and so I'm going to relax and I'm going to fall asleep. You can do the exact same thing with writing. You can sit in the exact same place. You can have the exact same beverage in the exact same cup. So when you do these steps, your brain becomes conditioned to say, oh, okay, we're going to be writing now. We're going to be in the artistic part of our brain now. You can do that same kind of conditioning. It's possible. And it's science. I'm not making it up.
That's also kind of calling the muse, I would say, because the muse can be anything from my point of view. It doesn't have to be that nice creature coming to you and telling what you write. Like it can be anything.
I agree.
What's been the biggest takeaway of your writer journey?
The biggest takeaway of my writer journey is that there's no one way to write. And I talk about strengthening my writing, building my craft. I wouldn't say that that's building toward any kind of one way to write. Everybody has their own unique voice. And there are always going to be people who don't like what you write, either the topic or the style. I like to give the example, and it's no hate, but I do not enjoy Mary Oliver's poetry. And she's very famous. She won a Pulitzer Prize. She's one of the most famous contemporary poets we have, and people love her. They quote her all over the internet. What are you going to do with your one wild, precious life? I don't enjoy her poetry, and she won a Pulitzer Prize. But who am I? She's passed away now, but do you think if she was still alive that she'd give a shit about what Anne-Marie Wells thinks about her poetry? No. But I think that also just proves that there are going to be people who dislike everything. And I tried. I've read a lot of Mary Oliver, and it does not appeal to me. Her collection Dog Songs that won the Pulitzer Prize, I don't get it. I don't understand the appeal.
And that is okay.
Yeah.
And that is okay. That is something that we have to establish. That is okay. It's okay that people don't like. Not everyone has to like everyone.
And somebody out in the world is saying the exact same thing about my book, Survived By. And actually, I did get some feedback once. I was in this poetry contest that you receive people's feedback on your work. And one person wrote, how many more poems do I have to read about parents dying of cancer? It's well, that's literally what my entire book is about.
Then don't read it.
So
there are anyhow more books that we can read in this life than there are more books written than we can read in this life. So make your choices. If you read the description, you know what's about. Don't read it.
But there are going to be people out there that don't like your work, and you have to just know that is going to be the case. But there are also going to be people who love you and who take your work and turn it into memes on the internet and who say that you are their favorite writer. And I think just, going into it with that mentality that you could win the Pulitzer Prize for your poetry collection, and there's going to be someone out there that says, I don't get the appeal.
Yeah, correct. Anne-Marie, if it would be one thing that the listeners will remember about our conversation, what would you like it to be?
I think my biggest takeaway is to focus on what delights you during the day. And it doesn't have to be extraordinary. And sometimes when you have a really shitty day, maybe it's just one thing. Maybe it's just the feel of your blanket as you go to bed. Maybe it's just the fact that you didn't see your neighbor that you hate. And today you didn't have to deal with them. And that's the one thing that delighted you. I think just if you can focus on those things, it makes life a little bit more tolerable. At least, that has been for me. I really felt like my life was really intolerable. I struggled a lot with deep and prolonged depressions, and of course, bereavement after my father passed away. And holding on to those little tiny moments and remembering them and reflecting on them at the end of the day kept me from falling into the abyss, kept me from drowning in my grief. I was able to at least come up for breath above the surface every once in a while. And that is the one thing that has helped me.
That's the most important thing. Take the small things. I can tell from my own experience. I do this every evening at the dinner table with my wife and kid, and we talk about the 3 good things that happened today, so that we manage
nice.
to focus on the good things. And I have to
Yeah.
say, my son is enjoying it more and more, and he's missing when we don't do it. He's missing it when we don't do it, and we just started since a few months, so it's not that long.
I'm excited to share this with my son too when he's old enough to talk.
It's so nice. It's really nice. What's next for you, Anne-Marie?
Yeah, well, I mean, I certainly am not giving up on Happy Iceland, so this is an ongoing project for me. But like I said, I do have a novel, the skeleton of a novel, and I would love to flesh that out and make it something more, maybe a novel in verse. Maybe I would incorporate my poetry writing into it the way that I did with Survive By in the memoir in verse, that I would be a novel in verse. I'm not sure yet. I'm not sure. I also have played around with the idea of turning Survived By into a stage play. And I kind of flirted with that idea and wrote about 8 or 9 pages of the beginning of it. And maybe that is in my future. And I'm not sure, maybe a whole new secret third thing that I haven't even thought of yet that I'll just get an idea for and then take off running with that idea. I'm not sure yet, but
keep the options
open. There will be something. There will be something.
Perfect. I will link all your social media, your website, everything in the show notes capture, so that everyone who's interested they can check and click
Great,
them.
Thank you.
And Marie, before we wrap this up, I have 5 questions. I call them the rapid fire questions. I would like to answer the answer as fast as possible. I don't want to put any pressure on you, but try not to think about it.
Okay, I'm ready.
What's your go-to comfort book?
My go-to comfort book. The first thing that comes to mind is this book titled Ephemera. It's a poetry collection by Sierra de Mulder. It's one of my favorite poetry collections, Ephemera.
Nice. But I don't know it. I will check it out. If you could visit any country next, what would it be?
I think New Zealand. That's been on my radar for a long time, and I want to see where The Lord of the Rings was filmed.
Then you have to go to Belfast. No, that Belfast was Game of Thrones. Sorry. I got confused. It's not fair to ask you this question because we are doing it early in the morning for you, but morning person or night owl?
Neither. I don't do well waking up early or staying up late. I'm more of an afternoon. Can I be an afternoon alligator or?
Absolutely. In the sun. In the sun.
Yeah.
After 5 weeks in Iceland, you deserve the sun only now. One word to describe your writing style.
Eclectic. Eclectic. It's a hodgepodge, mishmash of a lot of different things. So,
your go-to music style.
Like folksy bluegrass kind of music. Yeah, folksy American folk.
Give me one band. Give me one band. One.
The Avett Brothers. Yeah, I like the Avett Brothers.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Finish the sentence. The world needs more.
Kindness. Yeah, kindness, love,
Anne-Marie,
generosity, but kindness.
It was a pleasure. It was a pleasure to get to know you. It was a pleasure to talk about your books, and it was unbelievably nice to get to know about to get to know your Iceland adventure.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. Thank you for the time and the opportunity. I appreciate it.
Thank you for your time as well. And every time when you feel the need to share something else with the world, please let me know. I'm just an email away.
Okay, I'd love to be a repeat guest.
I would love to. I think we have a lot of things that we can talk about. I would love to. I enjoyed the
Awesome. Yeah.
conversation. Thank you so much
When
for
Happy
the time.
Iceland is on pre-order, then I'll get in contact with you.
Perfect. It's a deal. Sounds like a plan. Anne-Marie, thank you so much. I'm wishing you an amazing day today. I'm wishing you all the best of luck with finding the right publisher for the book, and let me know when it's in pre-order. I will be more than happy to have you again.
Oh, thank you so much, Paul. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Talk to you soon. Bye.